Well, with the start of the high school sports season just getting started with several cross country teams starting competition from throughout Southern California, we thought we'd catch up on what was going on in the LA City section. And who better to ask than City Section Commissioner Vicky Lagos. Vicky has been a coach over at Kennedy High School in Granada Hills. She's worked for LA Unified. She's also put in time as an assistant to the commissioner within the city section office for 5 years before having the reins thrown to her in 2019. I mean, we've talked to Ron Nassetti, we've talked to Rob Wygott. So without further ado, it is a great pleasure to welcome for our conversation CIF LA City Section Commissioner Vicky Lagos. Commissioner Lagos, it's good to see you, my dear.
Well, thank you for having us, James. It's good to hear from you, and thank you for including us in your conversations.
I appreciate it very much. I know right now it's heady times, and there's a lot of questions that need to be asked and everything. So, and I have a couple of questions on Twitter, but I want to go to this one first because I think I think you'll find it humorous and at the same time serious. And it comes from this gentleman by the name of Lorenzo Hernandez, who happens to be the head football coach at Garfield High School. And he had the simple question, which was, how you doing? How you holding up? And how are you staying so awesome these days?
Lorenzo, Coach Hernandez is a great guy.
He is.
He is just, a pillar of that community, and always asks about your family, et cetera. Really nice. And of course, I want to know how he's doing as well. But yeah, we're hanging in there, just as everybody is. And it's an anxious time. It's a confusing time. We just don't have a lot of answers, unfortunately. And people like yourself want answers. And I understand that. And our student athletes, they want answers, the parents. Unfortunately, we don't have them at this time. We can't predict what was going on. When we had started scheduling different things over the summer, we didn't know where we would be at this point in time. Last March, we were just finishing the soccer and basketball championships. We were getting ready with spring. Spring was starting to go, and all of a sudden, everyone's sent home. And a year later, we're almost at a year later, I would never have thought we would be in this situation. And my heart just goes out to all of our student athletes, all of our coaches, all of our parents, because this is something that they love to do. They wouldn't do it unless they were loving the process. And if you're a coach, you don't do it for the money, obviously. You're there because you really care about the student athletes, and that's been taken away from them, and let alone the student athletes themselves, especially our senior athletes. It's just been an incredible loss for them.
Commissioner Lagos, let's go to the news of the day, which kind of caught everyone by surprise a little bit from the state office. There was an announcement today regarding one of the amendments. If you don't mind, if you explain it to everybody, what was decided today by the state office, and maybe the ramifications from it, please.
Well, by the Bylaw 600 series,
yes.
Originally, at the beginning of this year, they voted in a waiver so that student athletes could compete in a club team and their high school team at the same time, which is not something that they usually are allowed to do. And then when the State Department of Public and Health guidance came out in early December, there was language in there saying that you could only be in your one cohort. So you couldn't actually play on two teams for the same in your high school because they wanted to keep everything contained. And that would have taken out that waiver. So they rescinded the waiver. So you couldn't play the club sport and the high school team at the same time. But then today, this morning at 9 o'clock, I'm sure you all saw that they put the waiver back in except for the sport of football, and that the CDPH is giving it as a recommendation and not a mandate.
Were you involved in the conversations on this particular issue, and how involved were you?
Well, we've been kept abreast. We have commissioner meetings almost weekly, and there was discussion about it at our commissioner meetings last week. And then, of course, Ron and Brian and everyone at the state office, they keep in great communication with us. So they talked to us about it last night as well.
Okay, so that's the new update on Section 600 as it was passed, or as not passed, but it was adopted today. Commissioner Lagos, I'm going to give you the first question that I gave the first question to Rob Wygott back in November, which is, where do we stand with high school sports from a city section point of view? Where do we stand?
Well, we're at a bit different place than the southern section is at this point in date, in February. As you all know, the purple tier sports are allowed to proceed with competition. So right now, the sport that we would have that would be able to compete would be cross country, and conditioning is permitted. We are a section of over 150 schools, and about 60% of them are district schools. Um, with that said, the district has not allowed anyone back on their campuses yet. And that would be the Los Angeles Unified School District. Um, and we presently don't have any schools that have started conditioning again or have started participating in the sport of cross country. We have some that are close in communications that I've had with them. So hopefully they will be able to start the ball rolling soon and give those student athletes the opportunity to condition and to participate in the sports that they're allowed to by tier.
I think people need to understand that even though the LA City section only deals with one school district, it just happens to be the second largest school district in the United States, which is LA Unified. And within those 150 schools, there's charter schools,
There are.
which I'm assuming those are the schools that have probably communicated with you that they have expressed interest to get back into conditioning.
Yes, correct.
Okay, I just wanted to put that out there. And there are really three gorillas in the room, aren't there, for the city section? It was, as it was explained to me, you have the California Department of Health, the LA County, and LA Unified. Can you just go through the procedure that the section has to follow for something like a sport to get back on the field?
Well, obviously we have the guidances and the guidelines that we're given. We send those out to our member schools. But of course, any school, any district, any charter, not just the district, because there's various charter systems that we have, they can make any rule or bylaw more stringent. So if they choose not to follow, their guidance that has been given by the Department of Health, the county or the state, then that's their prerogative. So we won't make that decision for the school to compete. And I think that's where the confusion lies a little bit. They get upset with the CIF, the section, or the CIF state in general, but we go by the guidances that are provided by us, but the schools ultimately will make that decision if they compete.
How have your conversations been with LA Unified?
We have a very good relationship with their, they have an athletic department, and Trent Cornelius is the coordinator there. And when I took over as commissioner, that was one of the things that I really wanted to emphasize, was to foster that relationship with them. And so I think we've done a very good job in doing so. Trent and I speak on the phone at least once a week. He has a chain of command that he's working through to try to get answers. And I'm trying to support him in all that. And I know he is working towards getting the essential question answered: is Los Angeles Unified School District going to allow their student athletes to compete in the proper tier when that tier is available to compete?
We come filming today. Earlier today, the governor at another press conference up in Fresno mentioned, I thought, some very encouraging news, which was he foresees in the next couple of weeks that many counties will be out of the purple tier and into the red tier. Does that give you some hope?
Well, of course, I am more hopeful this week than I was in a long time, probably since December. January was bleak, so we're looking better in our numbers. And again, what we have as a section office, what we've been dedicated to, is if there are schools that want to compete in this tier sports that are allowed to compete, we will give them that opportunity. If we have a cross country culminating event at the end of cross country season and we have 5 teams competing, that's what we'll do for them, because we've committed to giving every student athlete the opportunity that is allowed.
I know there's many sports that everyone has to oversee, but obviously the big one, or I call the big elephant in the room, is in football. I know that you pushed the calendar back. It looks as if your last contest you put on your calendar is April the 23rd. I think people need to realize, though, that the sands and the hourglass is kind of winding down, isn't it?
Well, I think we put down April 30th to,
April 30th would be the bowl game where your last league
yeah,
tournament. You're
yeah. Well,
correct.
and because
Okay,
some leagues have an odd number. So,
correct.
what we've done and what we've talked with our executive committee about, and our different sports advisories is these are the ending dates. And whatever they can fit in when they're allowed to participate, whether it's the tier, whether their district or their charter allows them to do so, they will fit that in. And we've had some schools say that, look, if we can get to the orange tier and we can have a 2-game football season, that's what we're going to do. Again, we don't want to take that opportunity, but yeah, football being a sport that the acclimation period is set for them. And our bylaws state that they need a 4-week run up to their first game. So mathematically, yeah, there comes a point when it just can't be done.
You mentioned in a previous interview that you've got yourself a medical advisory committee now for the section.
Yeah.
Are they have they given you some guidance as if we do get back, what the health procedures are when it comes to, having practice? Will there have to be screening, testing? Do you have guidance? I know, how confident are you that your schools can be able to pull this off?
Well, I think that they need the chance to be able to pull this off. I think that they know what they've missed out on. And so I feel like our student athletes, our coaches, our administrators are going to do whatever they can to make this as safe as possible. In response to the SMAC committee, they've taken the state guidances that have been given. They're working on those. We do have some nuances within our section. And some of them are athletic trainers that are at district schools. So they've been working on those nuances as well, because, things are a little bit different in different areas. And when they worked in conjunction with one another, when conditioning was able to begin, they really were there to support one another, show each other the different things that were working and what wasn't working, or how this would work better than this, and here are the forms that we're using to track. And so they really were willing to share, and so it's been a great addition for us to have that committee.
I know Rob has mentioned in his last press conference that all he says he's been asking is just give us a chance. Just give us a chance. Do you feel the same way?
Oh, of course, 100%. Like I said, they know what they've been missing. They want the opportunity to be able to show what they have done. And we have some great things going on in the city section. I think they don't always get the shine that they deserve. And we have a lot of committed coaches and administrators and athletic directors that really are there for the student athletes and will do whatever it takes to make this as safe an experience as it can be. Athletics, always there's an inherent risk, but this is something that we can control to the best of our ability. And I really think that they will do so.
I want to drill down on that point. Just explain some of the things that you think are being missed that you think need to be kind of brought to the table here.
Well, part of it too is sports driven. I mean, everyone wants to look at the basketball and the football. It seems like those are the sports that get maybe most recognition. But we have some sports and some individual athletes that are doing some great things, that they go on to college, they're doing well. To watch our boys soccer teams continually do well in the regionals, et cetera, things like that. But I think also in the classroom, I'm a firm believer that school is going to be, your high school experience is going to be what you make of it. What you decide to put into it is what you are going to get. And I think some of the things that are going on at these schools are incredible. And it just doesn't know. And the neighborhood school maybe doesn't get all the shine that it maybe deserves. And I don't know if we're not promoting it correctly or what we're doing, but we need to make sure that the kids are getting what they need, because there's some incredible things going on, both academically, athletically, kids that are doing volunteer work, some great leaders out there.
I just want to mention this, and this was coming off of the cuff here, so to speak. I had a chance to cover the sectional dual meet wrestling championships 2 years ago over at Birmingham High School, and I will tell you that event is absolutely a must attend if you are a wrestling fan. The energy in that gym when Birmingham and San Fernando, it doesn't matter if it's the girls or the boys, is absolutely, the Southern section cannot rival it in the sport. You should be really proud of it.
Oh, thank you. And not just if you're a wrestling fan. I have to say that I haven't been to too many wrestling events before being in this position, and it's eye-opening. And so it's intense. It's fun. It's really what high school athletics should be
Are
about.
you surprised by the growth of girls wrestling?
Um, Knowing the coaches that I've met through this process, no, not at all, because they are they saw a want and a need, and they saw an opportunity, and they really went after it. And we've been very successful in girls wrestling, and I think that's a testament to our coaches, because they went out there and they really embraced it, and it's been an exciting event for us.
Um, I do want to get back to the coaches side of things here a little bit. How's your interaction been with your coaches within the section?
Um, the coaches, for the most part, have been great with us. I'm so encouraged by the positive energy that they've given, because this has not been a real positive experience.
Sure.
We've given them various ideas and different advisories. For example, we've met with the volleyball. Their advisory is extremely strong, and they meet once a month, and they've invited our office to these meetings. And every idea, I mean, we've just been throwing stuff out, like, let's go outside, let's do it, whatever. They just want that opportunity. And they've really stepped up to be there for our student athletes too. And we've seen some great things with coaches, getting kids motivated on Zoom, etc. So it's been a good experience. The coaches have really been there for the student athletes, and I'm very proud of that.
You, as well as myself, were part of the state federation meeting last week, virtually. I don't think anyone who attended or who watched the meeting couldn't be helped but overwhelmed by the 30-minute public address portion of the meeting, in which the letters were read one by one. I think there's 62 that are on the record. What are those? Did that kind of? What was your reaction to hearing them all?
Well, of course, my heart bleeds for all of them. It really does. But the other side of it is it's slightly frustrating, if I can, because it's not the CIF that's deciding that they can or can't play. And I think that's hard for them to understand. In December, we had a Twitter campaign started by the San Pedro and Dorsey quarterbacks, and they were, wanted this and demand this. And I called the coaches. I said, let's meet with them. Let's meet with the boys. So the coaches and I, and the quarterbacks and I, we met on Zoom and explained the process to them. Like, look, this is, of course, I would love for you to be playing, but we have to do it safely. We have to wait for the proper tier. And then when you do, these are the processes that need to go on. And they were great, and talk about athletes that need to have the spotlight on them. They're two great leaders in that. And so they were very accommodating. They understood, and hopefully that's the process. We can get that information out to everybody. But again, yeah, I mean, we get the phone calls and the emails and the everything out. It's hard. My son's in there playing his video games, and all the kids are online doing whatever they are, and they're all yelling at me, when can we play? I'm like, oh, and it's hard because I know all of them. So it's been difficult.
Let's, for clarity reasons only, what's the age of your son, and is he in high school, or what are we at in the education process here?
Yeah, he's 17. I'm thinking how old he is. He's 17.
Oh boy,
the senior. Yeah.
Is he senior at what school? Can we say, or do we not want that public?
He's at Fermi now.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Hey, hey, I just want to make sure. And is he playing any sports or no?
He's waiting for golf to start.
Golf's a good sport now.
Yeah.
All right, so let's just keep it there. Does it get really hard when you have to check your email box every morning and you see the same letters from people wanting to know asking the same questions, and you have to give them the same answer?
People want to be heard, and I understand that 100%. So yeah, I don't want to say it's hard. It's sad because, I feel horrible because I don't have answers, and that's the reality of it. And I don't want to give false hope or anything else. But I feel in our entire office field, it's extremely important to answer all of them, answer all the phone calls, answer all the emails. I would rather have them come and ask us a question than to speculate and get something wrong. So, you know, it's hard, but it's what we do.
Your reaction to the let them play movement?
I understand where they're coming from. I do understand. And it was a movement that, they understand where the CIF is not making that decision to play or not to play. So I think it's a voice for them, and I think it's a positive thing.
Also, the superintendent, Superintendent Booner, has mentioned that he's made it clear if the students are not in the classroom, there's no sports. Does that complicate things for the section?
Of course, it would limit our participation. And again, in dealing with Trent Cornelius in the LA Unified School District athletics portion of it, he is trying to go through his chain of command to see where they stand on that, and to see if there's if anything changes as numbers get better. And I understand what they're saying. Inside the classroom, yes, it could be rough, but the outdoor sports, the data is there that the transmission is not the same as being indoors and in a classroom at the same place and not moving. So hopefully they'll take that into consideration. The student athletes, even more so than the athletic portion of it, the social emotional portion of it, for them to be out there with their friends and to get the exercise is just so important, and I don't want it to be overlooked.
I mentioned at the top of the video that LA Unified, the second biggest school district on top of behind only New York City. Do you there was a decision, I guess, last week or the other day from the mayor of New York City in which I think they're pegging school to come back pretty soon. Do you find yourself peeking over to New York City and trying to fit, and saying, hey, if they're doing this, maybe we can do this, so to speak?
I worked in LA Unified for many years, so no, not really, because they're going to do what they're going to do. What's more curious to me is what's happening in San Francisco, et cetera.
Explain, please.
I know that the districts, they're getting sued to go back, and I don't know what's going to happen with that. And I'm not in a classroom. I can't say whether I would want to do that or not, so I don't want to put that on anybody. But I don't know. I think that LA Unified, they're going to make the decisions that are best for LA Unified.
Let's talk about the business side of your section, if you don't mind. How solvent is the city section from a financial point of view right now?
Well, we're in a little different situation because we send our dues out. Our schools pay dues based on the services from the year before. So for the 2021 school year, our dues were based obviously on what they had done the 1920 school year. And so things were cut a little bit because of spring, but in terms of money coming in, we're down, obviously. We don't make a ton of money on our championships, to be very honest with you. So that is not something that we truly depend upon every year. I think for us, the concern will be if sports are not allowed to be played this year, what will it look like next year?
Have you guys, has your section applied for the small business loan from the USSBA Paycheck Protection Program?
We did. We did not get it in the first round, and we were put automatically into the second round. And then we're in the middle of applying for the PPP loan as well.
Okay, so the application is underway.
Yes.
Gotcha. I have one question here I'm going to pose that was put out to me, and I'm going to kind of tweak it a little bit, but I had a question was as quote, ask why other districts get to start baseball practice while LAUSD students are stuck listening to their friends talk about their high school baseball practice. And I want to tweak it a little bit this way. Do you fear that maybe some students will transfer out of the LA Unified School District to a southern section school, whether it be private or public, just for the opportunity to play?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's a concern, of course. It's a concern because if anyone, if any school discontinues their program, the student athlete can transfer and be immediately eligible. So yeah, that is a concern. It's a concern that I've talked with our executive committee about. Um, you know, it's something to think about.
Does that keep you up at night?
Yeah, I worry about it. Yeah. I mean, I think in the long run, we will prevail. There's always going to be student athletes that are going to want to participate, and we're giving that opportunity to them to participate. But there are some schools that the numbers are limited, and you don't want so many kids to not play or to have moved on, that they don't have that opportunity anymore. And so that really does concern me.
Okay, I'm tired of being depressed. I want to talk some good news here. I have with me
Okay.
the Hall of Fame list for the 2021 Hall of Fame class. And boy, this is a great class with a lot of athletes that are really the who's who of sports in their particular sport. Just talk about some of the names on here, and most notably, it was your former commissioner at one time, Mr. Jeffers.
Yes, yeah, and we saw his son officiating the Super Bowl, so that was exciting. It's always a great event for us. And Dick Dornan in our office, our sports information director, he leads the charge in that and does a fabulous job. And James, I don't know if you've ever attended one of the events, but I mean, you need to really come out. It is fun, and just the excitement of all these accomplished athletes. You know, we did have to move it to October, so we don't know if we'll be able to get Mr. Andy Reid there, because I assume he'll be in the middle of a season, but we'll see what we can do.
I'm sure we can get a video produced by him that'll be sent to you guys in a top class fashion. Knowing the organization, I'm sure they'll find a way to get it done.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
There are some really legitimate names that are on this list. This has got to be a source of sense of pride for you, isn't it?
It is. It's an event that we look forward to every 2 years. And just the accomplishments to see, there's the spotlight there. And just purely from an athletic standpoint too. I mean, you have Ramona Shelburne, who's, was a great athlete in her own, but look what she's done now professionally. So, it's exciting. It is an exciting event, and it's an exciting time to meet some of the athletes. Last time, I got to meet John Smith, and as a former track athlete, that was extremely exciting for me. So it just depends from year to year.
Well, we're so happy that you decided to honor Ramona. She's well respected within our community, our journalistic community, so to speak. And I think I speak on behalf of everybody who writes sports. We were so happy that you decided last year to honor Eric Sondheimer and Randy Rosen for their accomplishment. They were. I heard it was fun. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, that's all I'll say about that.
Exactly. As we close, and I did this with Rob, I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. A final message for your student athletes, please.
We're here for you. If you need anything, please reach out to us. We're working to make this a safe and healthy environment for you guys, and hoping that the numbers go down and the tiers move through the system and we can get you guys out there playing. Again, you've had a huge accomplishment through getting through high school for our seniors, and I'm sorry that this has been diminished by this, but just to take what you've learned from this experience and to move forward. And to all the underclassmen, we look forward to seeing you on the field, hopefully very, very soon.
I always ask at the end of an interview like this, if you don't mind saying a few words to the real heroes through this whole 10, 11 months, and have been the medical people who have worked at the hospitals, the doctor, in those hospital rooms. Just a small word, if you don't mind, please.
Yeah, absolutely. We have medical nurses, et cetera, in my family too. So we've really seen the effects of all this. And I'd like to thank you very much for doing everything that you can for our community, and know that we're behind you and supporting you.
Let me ask one last question. Rob had mentioned, and I just keep, it's like I have 50 questions, one question within 50. Rob mentioned that ever since the pandemic started, that he's been working 24/7. And usually you get a break in June and July to get freshened up, and then you're back at it again in August and September. Are you the same way? Has this been the same way with you, that ever since we stopped, you've been 24/7 trying to find a way to get the students back?
I think our entire office has been that way. Um, and even when you're not directly working, you're thinking of things. I just, in the middle of the night, the other night, I woke up and I'm like, give me a piece of paper I had to write down. And I'm like, for track and field, if we can do this, maybe we need to break up into divisions to not have as big of a crowd, except, your mind's continuously working. And I don't know how it couldn't, because you're worried about the future of these student athletes.
What have you learned about yourself through this whole 10 months?
Um, I've learned that, well, we already know disappointment is part of life, but I've been able to know that, yeah, you can push through, and you can keep going. And, one plan may not work. So you have to be flexible in terms of having three others, and the likelihood that they may not be able to go through is probably, pretty high. So don't get frustrated. And I think I've learned to calm and be myself down and be a little more patient.
Vicky Lagos is the LA City Section Commissioner. It is the wish of this person on the other side of the screen that, and I've expressed this to Ron Nassetti and to Rob Weigon, and maybe we can do this once a year at the end of the year, do a kind of a state of the section overview of things. And I cannot tell you how much I've enjoyed this conversation, and I am extremely grateful for the generosity of your time.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to talk to you. And of course, anytime.
Thank you, Vicky. I appreciate it.
Thank you.